Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's live stream. I'm Angie, I'm your host, and I'm so glad you could join me today. It's been a few weeks, but I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad to have you here with me. Today, we're going to continue with our Itagene series, but we're moving on from creating values, tints, and tones and shades, and now we're going to work with color schemes. We are going to start with an analogous color scheme, but I'll explain a little bit more about that in just a minute. Before we get started actually dyeing, I want to go over a few terms and explain what we mean by color schemes, the different types of color schemes available, and the analogous color scheme. So let me switch over to this document that I prepared to show you, and hopefully you can see that. So hold on, let me just put something in the chat first. Okay, so let's talk about color schemes. What exactly is a color scheme? Well, a color scheme is basically a planned combination of colors that are used together in a design. So usually they're colors that have some relationship to each other. So you can think of it as a color recipe, and it helps guide you in your choices so that your artwork feels a little bit more intentional and more cohesive. And this applies whether you're dyeing fabric or whether you're painting or anything. Almost everything you do art-wise relies on some type of color scheme, whether you planned it that way or whether it happened unintentionally. And you see this in nature a lot. Nature is full of different color schemes. And some of the reasons to use a color scheme is so that you can set the mood for your work and you can create harmony or contrast, and it draws your eye to certain focal points, and in the end, your artwork tells a visual story. So that is what a color scheme is all about. So next, I want to talk about some common types of color schemes. And you've seen these all throughout nature and throughout artwork, whether you recognize them or not. And the first one, which is actually one of my favorites, is, hi, Colleen. Oh, Colleen, I'm glad you're here. Thank you. And I'm glad you can catch it. And of course, it will be on a replay, so you can always go back and watch it again. So, hold on. What happened there? Something got in the front of my window. Let's see if we can get that. I really hate this. Um, Hold on. How can I get rid of that? I hate this new Windows. Go away. I can't get this thing to go away. Things just start popping up. I guess I touched one part of the screen, the wrong part of the screen, and that popped up. So I apologize for that. But let's talk about some of the different types of color schemes. And the first one I have here is monochromatic, and that's actually my favorite one. And it just uses one color, but has different variations in lightness and darkness. Think about the tones and tints and shades that we talked about last few streams, and they provide a very calming effect. So one of the examples is you can use a light blue, a medium blue, and a dark blue. And I really like this color schemes, and you see this a lot in flowers. A lot of flowers will have a monochromatic color scheme. One of my favorite plants, it had that. It would start out as a darker color, and then in a few days it would get a lighter version of the same color, and then it would go very pale, that same color. So that's monochromatic. And the next one we have is analogous. And these are colors that are right next to each other on the color wheel. And we're going to talk a little more about that a little bit in a few minutes, because that's the first color scheme we're going to start with in this series. So example is yellow, yellow, green, and green. And these colors, they're very harmonious together because they have something in common with each other. If you notice the yellow, green, and the green, they all have yellow in common. So there's no way that those colors won't look good together. Now, the next color scheme is complementary, and I know a lot of people like this one, especially if you like really vibrant colors and colors with high contrast. And these colors are directly across the color wheel from each other. So think of the typical red and green for Christmas. Another one is blue and orange, which is my favorite complementary scheme. But those are very high impact color schemes. The next one I have here is split complementary, and this is very similar to the complementary, but instead of using red and green, you might use red, and you use the two colors on the opposites on either side of green, such as blue green and yellow green. So that would be red, blue green, and yellow green. And they are still very high contrast, but not as high contrast as the complementary color. And the last one I'm going to talk about is triadic, and I call these the Crayola color schemes. And they're colors that are spaced equal distance around the color wheel, and they can be very vibrant and bold. So you think of your three primary colors, the red, yellow, and blue. To me, I think these remind me of colors that kids use when they first learning to work with colors. So those are some common examples of color schemes. And now let's talk about our analogous color schemes. So as I said, these are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. And typically you can use either three colors are next to each other or five colors if you really want to extend the range of this color scheme. If you decide to use three colors, you basically have four different schemes you can create. So you can do the yellow, green, and green, the green, the blue, and violet, the red, or the violet, violet, and red, or the red, orange, and yellow, orange. And if there's something you'll notice about these, the middle color is usually either a primary or it's a primary, secondary, or tertiary color. So if you want to extend that, you can add five colors. So you can, I should have had a bullet point there. So that's yellow, green, and green. I'm sorry. This is still three colors, but you can extend it. You can do this with five colors, and I don't have an example of that written up there. But today what we're going to do is we're going to do the red, orange, the orange. No, that's not what we're doing today. We are actually doing yellow, orange, and orange. And I don't see this one on the list. Oh, yeah, here we go. Yellow, orange, and yellow. That's what we're doing today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to the overhead camera, and we're going to dye three pieces of fabric, and we are also going to be learning a different fold today. We're going to move on from the square fold, and we're going to do the flag fold, which the flag fold gives an 8-sided repeating pattern. So it creates an octagonal pattern. And I really like this because it's a little bit more exciting than just your basic square fold 4-sided pattern. So I'm going to show you how to fold your fabric into the flag fold, and then I'm going to dye each piece of fabric, but we're going to use all three colors on each piece of fabric in different proportions. So let me switch to the overhead camera and we'll get started on that. So what I've done here, this is the fabric we're going to be using. And what I've done is I've already pre-folded the fabric into the basic way we fold all of the fabrics. So if you've seen any of the other streams, oh, hi, Catherine. Thank you. That's so sweet. How did you find me, Catherine? So if you've watched any of the other live streams, You know, we start out with a basic fold for the for our fabric, and that it's the same no matter whether you're doing the square fold, whether we're doing the flag fold, or later on we'll do the hexagonal fold. And it doesn't matter what size your fabric is. This is a 15-inch by 15-inch piece of fabric, and we start out by folding it in half in one direction. Okay? And then we want to take our raw edge, we're going to fold it back to the fold, the halfway fold. Now we're going to take it and flip it over, and then we are going to fold, excuse me, I have this thing about strings. I have to get rid of them. Probably wouldn't have them if I didn't tear my fabric, but I always tear my fabric. So now we're going to take this raw edge and fold it back to the center again. So that's the basic fold, and we'll do that no matter which fold we're doing. So I'm going to do this one more time for you. We're going to take our fabric, fold it in half in one direction, take the raw edge and bring it back to the center fold, and flip it over and take this raw edge and bring it back to the center fold. Okay. Well, Catherine, it's my lucky day too, so thanks for being here. Okay. So now that we've got our basic fold, we need to go ahead and start folding it into our flag fold triangle. And the flag fold is a 90-degree triangle when you're done with it. And it takes a while to get used to doing these, but once you get used to it, you can do it with your eyes closed. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this bottom right corner and we're going to bring it up to this edge here. So all we do is just take it and bring it up to that edge, and it automatically folds itself into a triangle. So let me know in the comment if you didn't get that, and I am going to do it several times before we actually dye the fabric. So now we actually have our 90-degree triangle here. And all we did was took this bottom right corner and brought it up to the top edge. And this forms the basis for the rest of the folds, and they're just going to be stacked on top of each other. So what I do at this point is I turn it over and I put that triangle on the bottom. And now I'm just going to, let me move my fabric over a little bit. I'm just going to fold my fabric back until I see the one edge along this side. Okay. And that forms the second fold. And now I'm going to flip this back at an angle until this lines up with this and this lines up with that other angle. So did you guys catch that? And all we do now is just repeat that process, folding it so that the two edges line up with each other. One is going to be a straight fold and the other one is going to be an angled fold, lining up with that and lining up with that. Now this is going to be our straight fold, okay, lining up here, lining up here. And then we fold one more time, and I don't get a full fold here, but I don't worry about it. If I'm really concerned about that, I would figure out how much I had that it didn't make it down to the full fold, and I would recut my fabric a little bit larger. But I usually don't worry about it. Okay, now that's our stack. At this point, I usually press my folds as I go, but I'm not going to do that right now because I want to unfold this and do it all over again. And you can see the lines in here, the fold lines as I went along. So let's do it all over again. We're going to pretend those fold lines aren't there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to press them out so that you don't see them if I can. My iron went to sleep on me, so give me a minute. They're still there, but not as visible as they were. Okay, we're going to start over. We're going to take this corner, move it up to the top, fold it so that it's up to the top, okay? And I'm just going to finger press it. That forms our first 90-degree triangle. or the basis of what we're going to have here. Take and flip it over and take our tail of fabric that's unfolded and bring it back and fold against those two lines. So we are aligning with these two edges. Now we're going to do the same thing, fold it at an angle and align with these two edges. And you can be as precise as you want to be, okay? If the edges don't align precisely, I generally don't care about it because no one's going to ever notice that. And we're going to take our tail again and fold it so that it aligns with the two edges. Now we're going to do this one, and this is going to be an angled fold and a straight fold and the final fold. Now let me know in the comment, guys, if you need me to do that again, okay? So I'm going to set it aside just in case you need. I'm going to let it sit for a minute. But the next step is to take our fabric and soak it in our soda ash, okay? I already have two pieces already soaked, and I'm going to hold off soaking that piece I just folded until you tell me that, I'll give it a few minutes, and if you tell me you need me to do the fold again, I'll do it again. But in the meantime, I'm going to set this aside, and now we're ready to go ahead and start applying some dye. So I'm going to put my gloves on and bring out the other two pieces that I already folded. And we're going to take a look at the pieces that we're going to clamp our fabric with. And these pieces are going to provide areas where the fabric does not receive any dye. Okay, Colleen, I'm glad you got it. How about you, Catherine? Did you get that on the folds? So I've got three things here that I'm going to clamp our fabric with. And as I said, these pieces will prevent certain areas of the fabric from receiving the dye, and that's going to give us our pattern. So soda ash. I mentioned we need to soak our fabric in soda ash. And soda ash is just sodium carbonate, and it's the fixative that allows the dye to become permanent on the fabric. Without the soda ash, the dye would basically just stain the fabric and most of it will wash out. So I have a couple different resists here, just a couple pieces of wood, and this is synthetic PVC molding from Home Depot. Some hexagonal tiles from a bathroom remodel, and some triangle tiles. These were square, and I had my tile cutter cut them into triangles for me. Those were from the bathroom remodel. So we're just going to put these on the fabric and clamp them. And when the fabric is dyed and you open it out, you're going to get this repeating pattern based on the way you put the resist pieces. So I'm just going to put these on, and you will get a different pattern depending on where you place the resist pieces. For the flag fold like this, they will always be an 8-sided pattern. Colleen, yes, a washing soda is usually 99% sodium carbonate, so you absolutely can use it. I've heard people say you can't because they say, oh, it's not 100% pure. The soda ash that I buy is also only 99% sodium carbonate. So yes, you can. And I have used washing soda and got good results. So yes. And washing soda is actually easily available. If you buy soda ash, don't buy it from your dye supplier because it's a lot more expensive. Go to a pool supply company and buy it. It's called pH Plus or pH Up, and it's 99% sodium carbonate. So you don't have to buy it from this dye supplier, and you'll save a lot of money. So that's one. I'm just going to clamp it like that, and that's usually one of my basic clamping techniques. And this one, I'd hope to cut some more resist shapes for now, but I didn't get around to it. This is way too big. Actually, I think I will put it like this. Do that one. That only gives me two areas, and I want to put three colors on here. So I'm just going to. You're welcome, Colleen. Clamp these on. Okay, wait a minute. That's not giving me three areas. I need to position this just a little differently. Okay. There we go. Now I have three little areas to put the dye in. And these are just spring clamps that I get from Home Depot. Okay, so since you guys got that, I'm going to put this other piece in the soda ash, and it just needs to get completely wet in the soda ash. Some people say you need to let it soak for 20-30 minutes. I had one instructor said she swishes it around in the soda ash, and that was enough. And I tried doing a swish, and it worked just fine. So let me reposition this one because I don't have three. I might not get three depending on how I do this. Okay. I will figure it out as I start dyeing. So I got that, and let me get this other piece out of the soda ash. It doesn't take long. And the fabric I'm using is muslin. I need to refold this. This came unfolded. It's just muslin from now defunct Joann's. So I'll just get this folded, refold it quickly. And for this next one, I've got these little hexagons. And, okay, I'll make this work. Okay, so we got our three pieces of fabrics all clamped together. And now I'm going to bring out our dyes. And so I've got my yellow, which is straight from the manufacturer, nothing about it. This is orange, the orange dye from the manufacturer, and I use Pro Chemical and Dye for my fabrics. They're a company out of Massachusetts. They're dye supplier along with other supplies for fabric dyeing. So now this is yellow orange, and they don't sell a straight yellow orange, so I had to mix this color. And this was 4 parts of yellow and 1 part of orange. So this is a half a cup of water, and I used 1/8 teaspoon sizes, and I didn't use a full eighth. So this was like 4 1/8, but not full eighths, and 1 of yellow, and 1 1/8, not a full teaspoon measure of orange. So, but the one thing I'm going to do with this is what makes the color schemes really successful if the colors aren't all the same strength or all the same value. So I'm going to take this orange, or that's yellow orange. I'm going to take the orange and I'm going to modify this orange with just a little bit of gray because this orange is so strong. I want to tone it down just a bit. So I'm just going to do 2 tablespoons of orange. And I'm going to add just a little bit of this neutral gray color to it. And that's going to tone that orange down so it's not so strong as compared to the yellow orange and the yellow. I am not going to measure how much gray I put in here. I'm just going to kind of grab a little bit with the pipette, put it in, stir it up, and you can see, I don't know how well you can see, but it toned that orange down a bit. I am going to add just a little bit more. So I'm doing this by eye. And I found that after I really started working with color, I could start to work by eye. So we have that. Let me move this out of the way, clean my little tray off. And now I'm going to start applying color to our pieces of fabric. Now this one, I think what I'm going to do is mainly apply color at the points and just let it bleed. Since I don't really have three distinct areas to apply dye from. And I always start with my lightest color, yellow, or necessary the weakest color. And then I work my way to the strongest color. So I'm going to start with yellow, and I'm just going to apply this yellow at the tips here. You can see it's already starting to bleed into the fabric, and that's just fine. I'm going to turn it over. Make sure I get all in between the areas. And Catherine, I like to use a pipette to apply my colors because I have a little bit more control. Not total control, but a little bit more control. So that's my yellow color. Oops. Now I'm going to apply the yellow orange to another corner. And this yellow orange is probably going to occupy more of the fabric than any other color. So it's going to be the dominant color. And then lastly, I will apply the orange that's been toned down with some neutral gray. The colors are going to all bleed into each other, which is, I think, going to make it a lot more interesting. And eventually this white area, the color will probably bleed all into that white area, and there won't be any white except for where the piece of wood is at. So I'm going to leave this, maybe apply a little more of this orange, or the orange, make sure. Here we go. So I'm going to set this aside. Clean off my tray and bring out the other piece of fabric. So let me know if you have any questions. And that little presentation that I showed earlier, I'm going to make that as available so that you can download that from my website as a PDF, so you'll have access to that. Okay, so we're going to do yellow, and I think I'm going to put the orange there. So I'm going to put the yellow on one side, the yellow orange on the other, and the orange in the middle. And you see how the color doesn't stay where you put it. It just bleeds, but I think you're going to find that that makes the piece a little more interesting. If you want the color to stay where it's at, you're going to have to do some painting, not dyeing, because the liquid dye is going to just do and go wherever it wants to. Now let's do our yellow orange. Let me close this up because you guys know me, I will spill it. I like to go inside to make sure I'm getting dye inside the piece. Now I'm going to do this last corner with the toned down orange. Okay, that one's done. So I'll set this one off to the side. Let's clean this up. Okay, now for our last piece of fabric. And this one actually does have 3 distinct corners, so it's still going to bleed into each other, but it's going to be interesting. So start with our yellow. I think I'm going to put the yellow down here. What's challenging is trying to figure out what the pattern is going to look like before you take it apart. And I'm still not there yet. I think this yellow will be in the middle of whatever our pattern that comes out, but I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe if I'd have paid more attention in a geometry class, I might be able to figure it out. But there ain't no going back, so. So I'll put some yellow, orange, even though we've got yellow on top of it, or we're putting it on top of yellow. But just put some down in between. And now this final corner with our orange, our toned down orange. Okay, that's pretty much it. If I was smart, I'd have a piece of fabric under here instead of wiping this up with the washcloth. Okay, so here we have the 3 pieces that we've done. And I think I really like this idea of using the same type of fold and clamping it and dyeing it a different way. You can get 3 pieces of fabrics that are very related to each other, not only in color, but in the patterns that they create. And okay, camera, come back up. So you can get, like I said, 3 pieces of fabrics that are related not only in the color, but in the patterns that they create. So if you wanted to use them all in the same project, they will work together very well. So that's pretty much it for today. I'm going to leave these overnight, and I do apologize for not being here yesterday. We were supposed to do this part yesterday, but we had some major thunderstorms come through this area, and we actually had some tornadoes touch down in town, but luckily no one was injured. So I didn't want to be online because I didn't want to be subject to the power outages that we were having. So today is nice and bright and clear, and the temperature's dropped about 15 degrees, so it's a beautiful day. But normally on the second day, I would have these fabrics rinsed out and I would show them to you. So what I'm going to do is over the next day or so, I'm going to rinse these out because they need to sit for at least 4 hours, but I usually let them sit overnight. I will rinse them out and then I will create a short pre-recorded video showing the finished pieces. Because next week we're going to continue with our analogous color schemes, but we're going to be working with different colors, but we'll still be working with the flag fold. And so I'll show you how those work out next week. Thanks, Colleen and Catherine. Thanks for coming. Catherine, I'm so glad you found me, and I hope you'll be back next week. And Colleen, I hope you'll be back next week too. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate you coming every week. I enjoy these, and I hope you enjoy them as much as I enjoy doing them, and I hope you learn something from them, because that's the whole intent, is for you to learn and being able to apply this to what you do in your studio. So let me know if you have any questions before I go, but I want to say thanks for being here one more time. So it's I know, Colleen, I love doing this. This Itajimi is my favorite process, and it's just I get so excited because of the patterns that you get, and there's just so many different patterns you can create based on what you clamp it with and how you clamp it, how you position that clamp. So I just love this. I never get tired of it. So I hope to see you guys next week. And if that's it, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream, and I'll see you next week. Bye.